Hello YouTube. Today various tunneling equipment will not surprise anybody. With its help, thousands of kilometers of mines and tunnels are dug, to which trains rush, huge streams of water flow, and various stocks are stored. However, in addition to such peaceful tunneling machines, combat moles were developed that could destroy the enemy's underground communications, destroy its deep and well-protected control points, and undermine arsenals hidden in the rock strata, and in the process discovered something or someone that destroyed them. Of course, all this is still under the cover of secrecy. Now, such combat vehicles could literally break through the enemy's deep territories without being noticed, crawl out and land troops where no one was waiting for them. At the beginning of the 20th century, such underground craft seemed to be almost like super weapons and of interest to a number of nations. And you know what? It all started with a flight of fancy. In 1864, French science fiction author Jules Verne published a famous novel called Journey to the Center of the Earth. His heroes descended to the center of our planet, to the mouth of a volcano. However, in his novel published in 1937, the Russian author Grigory Adamov reduced the problem of storming the Earth's bowels to the usual achievements of Soviet power. The design that his so-called subterranean boat had in his book, it was copied from the drawings of the Secret Engineering Design Bureau. I don't know if this was just a coincidence. No one can answer the question of what formed the basis of Grigory Adamov's bold guesses. However, judging by the few data and information available, there was still a reason for them. The first engineer who created drawings of the subterranean apparatus was Pyotr Raskazov. Back in 1904, this Russian inventor published a story in an English magazine about a self-propelled capsule that could move under the ground. The Russian engineer was killed in 1918 by a German intelligence agent who stole all of his documentation. And later, his drawings have come to light in Germany. On the eve of World War II, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were actively developing new weapons, combat submarines, or subterranean submarines, designed to strike at strategically important enemy objects, literally from under the ground. The ideas of subterranean warfare were not forgotten, even the victory of Allies over Germany, but still developments in this area are under the veil of secrecy, and of course not only in Russia. So the first subterranean self-propelled vehicle in the 1930s was created by the Soviet engineer and designer Treblef and his team of engineers Baskin and Kirillov. They developed the design of the first under-the-ground submarines. The principle of operation of this subterranean craft was largely copied from the actions of a burrowing mole. Before starting to design this subterrane, Soviet designers, using X-rays, carefully studied the biomechanics of movements of an animal placed in a box filled with soil. Special attention was paid to the work of the mole's head and paws. And then, on the basis of the results obtained, its mechanical double was constructed. Capsule-like subterranean craft of Treblef was moving under the ground through the use of drill, augers, and 4 feed jacks that were pushing it like the back paws of a mole. The machine could be controlled both from the inside and the outside, from above the ground, using a cable. The subterranean vessel also received power via the same cable. The average speed of the Subterrane was 10 meters per hour, but due to several shortcomings and frequent failures of the device, the project was terminated. Allegedly it was intended only for the practical purposes related to oil production, to facilitate this process and meet the needs of the socialist state. They took a real mall as a basis, like I said, or earlier developments in this area by Russian or foreign engineers. It is difficult to say for sure now, and I'm using different sources for this video compilation of materials, so just to show you, how hard it is to get information nowadays that is really precise. However, it is known that the Ural mines located under the mountain Blagodat, that's where the Soviets carried out trial voyage of a craft, subterranean craft. Of course, the sample was an experimental one, rather a smaller copy than a full-fledged working device, according to one source. Apparently, it resembled the later harvesters for the extraction of coal. The presence of flaws, a reliable engine, slow speed of penetration was natural for the first model. It was decided to curtail the work on the subterranean vehicle, but more about it later. According to one version, the unreliability of the subterranean craft of the 1930s was identified already during the first tests, and according to another version, before World War II, the Soviets still tried to finalize the craft on the initiative of the future People's Commissar of Armaments, or Minister of the USSR, Ustinov. After a while, the era of mass terror in the Soviet Union began. It's better known as Stalin's or Communist purges in the West. Many specialists, scientists who had participated in this subterranean craft project, they were executed. However, on the eve of the World War II, the authorities suddenly remembered that steel mall, and once more they became interested in the subterranean craft. Strakhov, a leading expert in this field, was summoned to the Kremlin. At that time, he worked as a supervisor of the construction of the Moscow subway. The Soviet scientist, in conversation with the same Ustinov I mentioned before, he headed the Commissariat of Armaments, Strakhov confirmed the opinion about the combat use of the subterranean vehicle. He was assigned to develop an improved experimental model based on the surviving drawings. People, funds, and necessary equipment were urgently allocated for the project. The Soviet subterranean craft was to be ready as soon as possible. So, of the beginning of 1940, the designer Strakhov, on Ustinov's personal assignment, improved Treblef Subterranean structure. Moreover, this project was originally created exclusively for military purposes, that's another source, and the new underground boat had to operate without communication with the surface. So within a year and a half, a prototype was created. It was supposed to be able to work autonomously or independently under the ground for several days. For this period, the subterranean vehicle was supplied with fuel, and the one-man crew was supplied with oxygen, water, and food. However, the Second World War II start prevented the completion of the project. The fate of the prototype of the subterranean boat Strakhov had created was unknown. Again, we're dealing with different versions. So, a few more words about it. So, apparently the State Commission did not accept the experimental model, and Strakhov did not return to the subterranean underground boat development. He was sent to build bunkers. The fate of Strachov's prototype of the subterranean vessel is unknown. It was destined for the fate of many other projects. This sample was cut into metal pieces. The country at this time needed more planes, tanks, and submarines for defense against Nazi Germany. It was not only the Soviet Union that showed interest in subterranes, as I said. Before the war, a Subterrane was developed by German designers in 1930s. Their engineer von Wern, according to other sources, von Werner, was issued a patent for an underground amphibian, which was called Subterrane. The device was able to move both in the water and under the surface of the earth, and according to von Wern's calculations, in the latter case, the Subterrane could reach speeds of up to 7 kilometers an hour. At the same time, the German Subterranean craft was designed to transport a crew and landing party consisting of 5 people and 300 kilograms of explosives. Well, in 1940, Nazi Germany seriously considered the von Wern project for use in military operations against Great Britain. This subterranean submarine was immediately classified. The project was kept in the military archive. Probably no one would have remembered it if the war had not started. Count von Stauffenberg, who supervised military projects, extracted it from the archive. He suggested that Hitler use a submarine to invade the British Isles. He was to cross the channel unnoticed and pass underground to the desired location. Well, in the plans developed by Hitler for the Operation Sea Lion, as it was called, which provided for the landing of German troops on the British Isles, there was a place for submarines and underground boats of von Wern. His amphibians were supposed to swim unnoticed to the British coast and continue to move through English territory under the ground, and then to deliver a surprise attack on the British defense in the most unexpected area for the enemy. According to some sources, by the way, the work on the project of von Wern involved someone named Treblef, and there is an unconfirmed hypothesis that in fact it was the same Treblef who developed the first subterranean vehicle in the USSR and either visited Germany and met with von Wern, or with the help of the Nazi Secret Service Abwehr escaped from the Soviet Union. The Subterranean project was ruined by arrogance of Hermann Göring, who headed the Luftwaffe, Nazi Air Force, and expected to defeat the British in the air war without help from the ground. As a result, the subterranean vessel of von Wern remained an unrealized idea, as well as the fantasy was his famous namesake Jules Verne, who wrote that fantastic novel Journey to the Center of the Earth, long before the appearance of subterranean craft or boats in Soviet Russia and Nazi Germany. Well, there was an even more ambitious project by a German designer, Ritter, who was it was named with a fair amount of sentiment, this project, Midgard Schlange, or Midgard Serpent, in honor of the mythical reptile, the world serpent that encircles the entire inhabited earth. The basis of the serpent, as it is believed, was the drawings of Peter Raskazov, stolen by German intelligence during the First World War. As I told you before, this machine had to move above and below ground as well as on water and underwater at a depth of up to 100 meters. It was assumed that the Serpent would move underground at a speed of 2 kilometers an hour in hard soil, to 10 kilometers an hour in soft soil, and 3 kilometers an hour underwater, and 30 kilometers an hour on the surface of the earth. But the most striking thing is the colossal size of this giant machine. The Midgard Schlange was conceived as an underground train consisting of multiple compartment cars on tracks. Each was 6 meters long. The total length of the connected snake phalanx cars was from 400 meters. In the longest configuration, more than 500 meters. The path of the Serpent in the ground was broken by 4 1.5-meter drills. In addition, the car had 3 additional drilling kits, and its weight was 60,000 tons. To manage such a huge machine, it was required 12 pairs of rudders and 30 crew members. The giant subterranean armament was also impressive: 2,250 kilogram and 10 kilogram mines, 12 paired machine guns, and 6-meter underground torpedoes. It was originally planned to use the Midgard Serpent to destroy fortifications and strategic sites in France and Belgium, as well as to undermine British ports. But in the end, the underground colossus of the Reich never took part in any of the combat operations. There is no exact data on whether at least a prototype of the Serpent was made, or whether this idea, like the Subterrane, remained only in paper form. But it is known that the advancing Soviet troops found mysterious tunnels under Kaliningrad today, and nearby a destroyed vehicle of unknown purpose. In addition, technical documentation describing German subterranean submarines fell into the hands of Soviet intelligence services. After the victory over Nazi Germany in 1945, an unspoken confrontation began on the territory of that country. The former Allies began to fight for the possession of Nazi Germany's military secrets. Among some other developments, a German project for subterranean craft, called the Sea Lion in this version, fell into the hands of General Abakumov Smersh, as the Soviet military counterintelligence service was called. So detailed German drawings were obtained by Soviet intelligence officers at the end of World War II. Now, there is a Russian tradition that they recognize only Western authorities, despite the fact that it was Russian engineers who pioneered the creation of combat moles. Now, only German drawings of underground miracle weapons forced the competent Soviet authorities to push the beginning of new work on the Soviet subterranean craft. The Minister of the State Security of the USSR, Abakumov, literally demanded from the President of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR, Sergei Vavilov, to create a special group to study the possibility of designing subterranean craft. The creation of the battle mole was even more secret than the Soviet nuclear project. Information about it is very scant, meager, and limited even today. The group, which was led by Professors Pokrovsky and Babapta, undertook a study into the capabilities and possibilities of this device. As a result of research, the following verdict was made: the subterranean vessel can be used by Soviet Union for military purposes. At the same time, in 1948, Soviet engineer Tseferov created his own subterranean projectile. He was even given an author's certificate of the USSR for the development of subterranean torpedo. This device could move independently in the thickness of the earth, while developing a speed of up to 1 meter per second. Well, let's talk about the construction of the secret factory. Now, in the USSR, meanwhile, Nikita Khrushchev came to power. At the beginning of the Cold War, the Soviets needed their own aces, military and political, in this card game. The engineers and scientists who were faced with this problem proposed a solution that advanced the project of creating a subterranean vessel to a new level of development. It was supposed to be equipped with a nuclear engine, like some of the first submarines that had a nuclear reactor. In a short time for pilot production, it was necessary to build another secret factory. By order of Khrushchev in early 1962, the village of Gromovka, Ukraine, was the site where the Soviets began its construction. Soon, Khrushchev publicly declared that the imperialists should be reached not only from outer space, but also from under the ground. 2 years later, the factory produced the first subterranean craft of the USSR. In 1964, the first Soviet subterranean vessel with a nuclear reactor was released, and it was called the Combat Mole. Little is known about its development, however. The subterranean machine had an elongated titanium cylindrical hull with a pointed end and a powerful drill. According to various sources, the size of the nuclear submarine was from 3 to almost 4 meters in diameter and from 25 to 35 meters in length. The Combat Mole's nuclear reactor allowed the boat to reach speeds of up to 7 kilometers an hour. The Combat Mole had a crew of 5. In addition, the vehicle could carry up to 15 paratroopers and about a ton of cargo explosives or weapons. So, over 60 years ago in the USSR, a successful prototype of a new type of combat vehicle was created. The war machine Mole was calmly biting into the rocks and sinking into the depths at an unprecedented speed for tunneling machines. Such combat vehicles were supposed to destroy fortifications, underground bunkers, command posts, and missile launches, in silos and mines. In addition, the combat moles were preparing for a special mission. According to the plan of the military command of the USSR, in the event of an aggravation of relations with the United States, submarines could be used for a subterranean strike on America. With the help of submarines, it was planned to deliver combat moles to the coastal waters of seismically unstable California, then drill into the United States and install underground nuclear charges in areas where American strategic facilities were located. If the atomic mines were activated, the region would experience powerful earthquakes and tsunamis that could be attributed to a normal natural disaster. According to some reports, tests of the Soviet nuclear subterranean vehicle were carried out in different soils in the Moscow region, the Rostov region, and in the Urals. The test of the latest miracle weapon took place on the territory of the Sverdlovsk region, near the city of Kushwa, in the area of Mountain Blagodat, Grace in English. I ask my audience to recall that, for example, the Dyatlov Pass incident also took part in the Sverdlovsk region some years earlier. I'm just saying, this area is fascinating in the secrets that it keeps. The first Ural test was completed successfully. All the test participants were amazed by the result of the first launch in the conditions of solid Ural soil. The subterranean vessel went through at a low speed from one side of the mountain to the other. The subterranean craft demonstrated good results. It managed to overcome the heterogeneous ground as well as destroy the command bunkers located under the ground, which belonged to the hypothetical enemy. The prototype was demonstrated several times to members of government commissions in the Rostov region, the Urals, and Nakhabino near Moscow. Well, after that, mysterious events began. Let's put it that way. During the second test, in the thick rock of Mountain Blagodat, the experimental machine exploded for unknown reasons. Since there was a nuclear reactor on board of the Subterrane, as a result of the accident, the Ural territory was shaken by a nuclear explosion, while the apparatus itself, with the people in it, was literally torn apart by the force of the explosions, and the collapsed tunnel buried the experimental craft forever. After the accident, the project was terminated, closed down, and all data on testing of the latest weapons were either destroyed or classified. There were no official confirmation of the test, and still there is none. Only some pieces of information that leaked into the public domain in the era of publicity and permissiveness, glasnost и perestroika, the early 1990s, thanks to Gorbachev, revealed the secret of the failed scientific and technical breakthrough of the Soviet engineering thought. In principle, the very fact of limiting information is quite common, because it is no secret that in the post-war period, Soviet scientists developed a variety of projects, sometimes bordering on the ideas of science fiction. And I will tell you about some of them as it pertains to my research of the Soviet paranormal. We know a lot about some of the projects, but some of them are still hidden in secret archives of the Russian Federation. An underground nuclear explosion near Nizhny Tagil was recorded by seismic stations in different parts of the Earth, while a distinct tremor of the Earth was felt by residents of neighboring settlements, Kushva, Verkhnyaya Tura, Krasnouralsk, and Baranchinsky. The accident of the subterranean vessel, by the way, almost became an occasion for an international scandal, since the tremors characteristic of the explosion of an atomic bomb were recorded in NATO and in the United States. Due to this incident or accident, testing was discontinued. The specific reasons for the explosion of the subterranean submarine were classified, as I mentioned before. Again, there is the record that the seismic detectors of the Nizhny Tagil weather stations recorded tremors, but their epicenter could not be detected. In the archives of the Seismological Laboratory of the USSR Academy of Sciences. Now let's look at some more information that exists about the mysterious events that took place. During that planned test, the subterranean nuclear-powered vehicle allegedly exploded in the Ural Mountains. The crew, led by Colonel Semyon Budnikov, most likely it was an assumed name. The crew, they all perished heroically. The reason for this is allegedly a sudden breakdown, because of which the mole was crushed by rocks. According to other versions, there was a sabotage by foreign special services or even intrusion of the submarine vessel or subterranean vessel into an anomalous zone. I will get to this hypothesis later. So nuclear explosion, breakdown, sabotage, or the paranormal. After Khrushchev was removed from leadership positions, many Soviet programs were curtailed, including this project. By the way, my father, who earlier was arrested for speaking out against food shortages under Khrushchev, was released from prison after Nikita's downfall. So things were changing. Brezhnev took over, and there was the usual blood sport of the politics. Now the subterranean vessel again ceased to enter Soviet government. The Soviet Union's economy was bursting at the seams. Therefore, this project, as well as many other developments, such as the Soviet Ekranocraft that flew over the Caspian in the 1960s and 70s, was abandoned. The Soviet Union could compete, they thought, with the United States in ideological warfare, but it was not noticeably losing in the arms race. Now the Soviets, we had to save on everything, and also the government, the Communist Party, had to spend tons of money on support of various people's democracies, so-called progressive movements, agitators, uprisings, and other international parasites, while we, Soviet people, lacked basic consumer goods. This was felt by the common people, trust me, and it was understood by Leonid Brezhnev, who was the leader at the time, General Secretary. The existence of the Soviet state was at stake, so advanced bold projects that did not promise rapid superiority were kept secret for a long time and curtailed. That's one explanation. Or I would also look into the joint decision by world powers to stop messing with what is under the ground. But I have no proof of that. After the termination of the project, according to some reports, the equipment and prototype units were to be repurposed for civilian needs and adapt combat vehicles for mining needs, for example, for the construction of the subway. But military technology required significant improvements before it could be used in a civilian environment. As a result, it was decided not to spend money on re-equipment of subterranean craft and their processing, but simply to liquidate everything. This was the end of the history of the subterranean combat vehicle. Unfortunately for some, and the Soviet designers did not manage to make the fairy tale into a reality. Well, in 1976, information about subterranean nuclear fleet of the Soviet Union was leaked to the press. This was done for the purpose of military and political disinformation. The Americans fell for this bait and began to build similar devices. I have no proof of that. This is what some information in Russia states and has been published and talked about. It is difficult to say whether such machines are currently being developed in the West and in the United States. Does anyone need a subterranean submarine today? But how much do we know about the modern world? Perhaps at this very moment, subterranean vessels are making their journeys through the bowels of the earth. Well, secret developments in Russia as well as in other countries are not going to be advertised in the media. So let's leave all this murky area and look into something else. What external force prevented the Soviet combat mole from going deeper? Long ago, there were legends that there exists another intelligent life inside our planet, in its own subterranean world, and completely unknown to us civilization that controls the Earth, and some people say possibly the entire solar system. And as if there are some portals that allow the chosen ones or whoever they are to enter this other world as well as to leave it. Nazi occult scientists have been looking for such portals. And by the way, they were on the Kola Peninsula too, and there were many plans and many projects they looked into. However, you can only enter the Earth, it is said, if you are allowed to. And so the civilization of Middle Earth, so to say, is protected by a powerful energy sphere and rock armor known to us as the Earth's crust of the planet. It is believed, for example, that the deepest well in the world is located on the Kola Peninsula. Please see my other videos about this Russian peninsula. Indeed, during the Soviet era, the Soviets managed to break through 12,262 meters deep. This is a world's record, but even in the Soviet times, work on the well began to be curtailed as if because of their high cost. Well, today it is completely destroyed and the entrance hole is welded. However, there is a hypothesis that drilling stopped for another reason. When it became possible to lower video equipment to the entire depth of the well, it seemed that the vertical depth was 8 kilometers. And then, for some unknown reason, the drill began to spin in a horizontal plane, as if it had encountered an obstacle of impenetrable strength. So it was spinning over 4 kilometers. What if another civilization exists, let's say not in outer space, but under our feet, and its guardians did not want the Soviet combat mole to penetrate the forbidden limits? What external force prevented us from going deeper than 8 kilometers, for example? There are many cases when people heard the hum of working machinery coming from somewhere under the ground, although there were no underground works within a radius of thousands of kilometers. The sonars of submarines also recorded certain technological noises coming from the ocean depths. Read my and Philip Mantle's book about Russian encounters with unidentified submersible objects through the centuries. Russia's USO secrets: English, Russian, Portuguese, Spanish, soon French and German. The more languages it is published in, the more people around the world will see similar experiences. We are looking for extraterrestrials in space, right? Again, maybe another civilization does exist literally under our feet, and its guardians did not want the Soviet mole to penetrate more than necessary. After all, the technical characteristics allow that combat mole to reach the center of the Earth, from what we know. That's why the unique machine for subterranean exploration and warfare was destroyed, and the mystery of the long-standing Soviet project is unlikely to ever be fully revealed, and it may not be only the Russian decision. Look, I brought your attention I want to bring your attention to the site of the test, the Ural Mountains. In my previous videos, I mentioned existence of an advanced race called Chud in Russian, strange humanoid beings or human beings that long ago left the surface of the planet and moved inward into the bowels of the earth. There are fascinating stories about Chud in the Russian north, for example, in the Urals, of course, and someday I'll tell you more. If you like my research, please subscribe to my channel. Please support me. You can see links in the description how to do it, and I hope to bring you more stories. Thank you.